Hello, everyone. Welcome to Snap Take. This is Glazer of Snap Judgments, the official podcast of Marvel Snap Zone. What we have for you today is the most thorough look you will find about Ms. Marvel, about the Higher, Further, Faster season, all the spotlights, everything you need to consider before you decide which cards to buy. Let's get going. This is going to be a jam freaking packed video with an absolute ton of content. So please hit that sub button. We bring you at least 2 brand new decks every single weekday. We've got 14 Ms. Marvel decks for you, along with at least 2 decks for every other card in the spotlight this week. We always bring you the most quality decks in Marvel Snap. We also do the biggest giveaway in Marvel Snap every month. This one is rounding out. But before we get to that giveaway, we've got breaking freaking news. Marvel Snap has announced that they heard the community about Mobius, and they are reverting him to an ongoing. He's going to be a 3-3, not a 3-2, but he is going to be an ongoing. So, first, I don't think this change was needed, but I'm happy they're listening to the community. Excuse me. They shouldn't just be listening to me, right? This should be what everyone wants, what the community thinks is best. The community has spoken. They are listening to the community. They're not going to with everything. Sometimes they have to make decisions, but they don't want people to feel like they wasted their money, wasted their tokens on this card, so they're fixing it. Awesome. Now, what does this mean for the meta? It means for at least a few days, your Mr. Negative decks, your She-Hulk decks, your Death decks, your Sarah decks should probably go away. When this is reverted, Mobius is going to start seeing a lot of play again, basically immediately, just because people are going to be trying out the thing they missed. They're going to be testing it. So skip Mobius for a little bit. Thought 1. Thought 2, after a few days, people are cutting Mobius again, but they're cutting Mobius more. A 3 is exponentially more than a 2. Not technically exponentially, I'm aware. A 3 is way, way more than a 2 in terms of Marvel Snap. And I don't think Mobius fits into nearly as many decks. I don't think it fits into, for example, the Shuri decks like he did before. I don't think he fits into the Elsa decks like he did before. You know what's ironic? I think where he actually fits is Loki decks, trying to get an edge on the mirror. He becomes one of the Loki deck tech choices. But outside of that, I don't know where he goes, and I don't think he's going to be in that many decks anymore. So at the end of the day, I think that this is a relatively safe change, and I hope I'm correct that Mobius becomes a good card in the meta, but it will no longer be a meta-defining force. We have the biggest giveaway. We're giving away 5 YouTube season pass. We also have the Twitter giveaway. I'm gonna have to announce that in tomorrow's video. I was just on Obehaved's stream basically all night, and I didn't have time to pull the Twitter. I'm doing my best. We are also recording the podcast tonight as you're watching this. We've got a lot going on here, so I'm really sorry. The Twitter giveaway will be in tomorrow's video. We have 5 YouTube winners. We have Dr. Doom, Rouse, Hearthstone, Zahelm, Silverwolf, and Myers Benson. And here is everyone's screen name as associated with it. Please email me at snapjudgmentspodcast@gmail.com, and I'll get you set up with your season pass. I am giving away 1 more season pass because I miscounted my days. Monday's video needs a season pass giveaway. So the video from yesterday, you can still comment on that. I will give that away on Thursday's video. So check Monday's video, yesterday's video, and from there, you can get 1 more season pass. If you email me, make sure you pause this screen if you're a winner so you know what to do. Oh, let's keep going. Our new card is Ms. Marvel. This is a season pass card. 4/5, Series 5 season pass. It'll be a Series 5 card once it's no longer a season pass card. Ongoing. Adjacent locations where your cards have unique costs have +5 power. That makes her potentially a 4/15. Unique costs means that you have only one drop in the left location, only 2 drop in the right location, etc., etc. As long as you can pull that off, you have a 4/15. That's one of the biggest. I mean, I think that's the biggest 4 in the game, unless Dark Hawk goes completely nuts. It is an absolute stellar card that can work almost immediately. Is this, despite its power, going to be as good as pre-nerf Elsa? No. I think it's probably relatively close, a little worse than post-nerf Elsa, and post-nerf Elsa is probably one of the 10-ish best cards in the game. I don't think it's Loki. I don't think it's Elsa. I think it's better than Daken. It's worse than Hitmonkey, but it's still worth having and going to be an excellent, excellent card. Spoiler, my advice for season pass cards is always, whether it be the worst season pass card in the world or the best, is always to buy it. We'll get to why as we go. Some people decide what to buy, what not to buy based on variants. These are the variants that we have a release date for. There's the Pixel 1123, whatever, it's a Pixel. It's kind of an ugly Pixel. Let's not. We've got Rian's nice variant coming out literally the day after the card is released. I don't love this one, to be completely honest. It's nice, but not one of my favorites. I am very likely to wait till 1111 and buy the Dan Hip, since that's 700 gold as compared to Rian's 1200. For a 500 gold discount, I get the Hip. Longtime viewers will know hips are my favorite, so I'm perfectly happy to grab a Hip. Let's look at what other variants are coming. We've also got the Petrovic Super Rare. We don't know when that's coming. It's reasonable to assume that Petrovic Super Rare or this Melina could be a later Spotlight cache. I really, really like that Savage Rare. I think it looks great. It feels very much like the character. I love the peace sign, as anyone who watches the end of my videos knows. I like all three of these, honestly, more than anything here but the Hip. But hey, I think that it's kind of hard to go wrong. These are very good variants. It's a very good, very strong character design, so that helps. They are giving us this amazing Spotlight season pass. Sorry, this amazing season pass one, the Peach Momoko one. It's freaking phenomenal. I love it. If there weren't a Hip, I would be perfectly happy running this and saving my gold. And then there's this other Petrovic one, and this doesn't even look like Ms. Marvel to me. I don't know what this is. So I stuck it on its own slide. I generally want my cards to look like the character they're representing in their most iconic form. This isn't that, so I like the Peach best, followed by the Hip, and then probably the Savage. Oh, let's keep going. She's got certain synergies. Her first synergy is ongoing stuff. Mystique to copy her. Mr. Fantastic to also add power to 2 lanes. Claw. Ooh, my voice broke there. Claw to add 6 to the right lane, and Onslaught to double it. Onslaught will make her put 10 in both lanes as far as we're aware. Onslaught and Mystique will make her put 20 in both lanes. That's bonkers. You can play ongoing buff stuff with Spectrum and her. It's a nice way to basically say, I'm already going wide on power. Let's go tall with that width. It, like Spectrum, if you have enough ongoing cards, basically can add an extra Doom worth of power, plus her own 7. So that's pretty nice. We've got the potential board buff cards like Omega Red and Tribunal. And I'm going to tell you straight up, I don't think that's going to work especially well. I hope I'm wrong, because Omega Red would be cool to be good, but I don't think it's going to work. She spreads out the power, and Omega Red wants to go tall in one location, so it's a little iffy. We've got lockdown cards. Lockdown cards will love her because she's putting extra power into locked locations. That is awesome with Storm Professor X. She's good with regular go wide cards. Doom puts a Doombot in each location, but only one, which means her buff is still active. She's good with the alone cards, i.e. Namor and Orca, because they want to be alone, and she's going to give them +5 on top. They're already +5, which is a lot of power in that lane, especially if you're also running other cards like Mr. Fantastic and so on. Worth noting, empty locations do not count for her buff. There has to be at least one friendly card there. One card on your side of the board there. The idea being that she gives her friends power. She's like a leader of teams and people like her. So there have to actually be people there for her to get the power. Her location doesn't matter. You can have 3 other 4s with her in that location. She will still get the power. And the base cost is checked. So Miles Morales will be a 4, or Stature will be a 5, even if their ability is cool. We're going to get to 14 decks with Ms. Marvel right now. Hopefully you can build and play a couple of these. If you cannot, and you would like a Ms. Marvel deck, come over to the podcast, chat with the host section of the Marvel Snap Zone Discord. The link is in the description to this YouTube video. So all you have to do is check that, join, and I will happily help you build a Ms. Marvel deck. The first deck is from T.O. Jarston. I changed, I believe, 1 card to add Mystique. He did not have Mystique in this. He had Titania. This is a Cerebro 5, and I think that Cerebro 5 is very likely to be very good with Ms. Marvel. What you want to do here is you want to get a bunch of power out there, right? You drop Ms. Marvel and Medusa in the middle lane, and then once you and then you can drop like Polaris in the right or whatever, or Spider-Man, and start in the middle to move. Ms. Marvel, and then you can either copy Ms. Marvel with Mystique to add 10 power to 2 locations, or you can just play something like Stegron. You can play Cerebro and Mystique, and then you can end with Doom for a bunch of 8 to 11 power Doom bots. It's a nice way to get a ton of power on the board. Man Thing here seems really good because you want Luke in these decks anyway. So Man Thing says, I'm just going to ruin your opponent's board and not affect you. And if Man Thing is, again, 7 or 9 power, you're pretty satisfied. This deck seems really, really cool. It's one of the first places I plan to try. This is Tall Boy. I felt like we had to have a deck that tries to do Namor and Claw. Sorry, Namor and Orca. So this is that deck. I also decided to throw Jean in there on the logic of I do something like blah, 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 Zabu into Jean into Ms. Marvel, and then I can just throw Namor and Ant-Man and Namor, and then I can drop Orca and call it a day. And that might win a fair number of games of Snap, to be perfectly honest. I also have the play that I talked about earlier that I'm really excited to try of going Invisible Woman mid, followed by Ms. Marvel, Mystique, Onslaught, all mid, and then I've just got 20 power in both side locations, and I've got 12, 15 in the mid. Seems reasonable to me. Like it might win a few games of Marvel Snap, right? Be wary of move decks, obviously, if this is the case. It doesn't have to be Miss Marvel, by the way. Because of the way you're doing that, you can easily have Mr. Fantastic mid and get another +4. So then you would have 24 in each location. Seems nice. This is Miss Lockdown. This is a Den deck. Den is the head writer in Marvel Snap Zones. Brilliant player. This is likely to be one of the best homes for Ms. Marvel. Basically, you play something like Nebula in a left lane and Jeff, and then you go Storm in that lane, and then you play Ms. Marvel center. And you're probably going to win that lane. And like if they're busy trying to win that Storm lane, right? Now you've got a reasonable spot for a Professor X, right? And that can win you the game, right? That seems great. Then you can move that Jeff over to Professor X as needed. That's a 6-11 power lane for Ms. Marvel there. There's a lot of nice ways to do this. Iron Lad working as like an extra Ms. Marvel. Alioth working as either protection there or to kill the one available lane they have to play. Seems crazy, crazy strong. This is basically a stats good stuff deck. I think it's going to be really, really stellar. This is, again, going to be great. Not surprising coming from deck. Combat Lockdown, our friend Combat over at Combat Marvel Snap, who you should absolutely check out, has been playing this deck. I cut a 2-drop. I cut Silk because it's hard to control where Silk goes, and there's other 2s in the deck for Ms. Marvel on the theory that, well, I'm running Professor X here, right? So if I'm running Professor X, then having that Ms. Marvel buff is good. I think Ms. Marvel into where is Professor X going to go is really strong. You don't have to make that play. You can still easily do the Psylocke into Professor X on 4, but you also have Iron Lad as a way to steal that extra power. I think this deck is going to be great. Werewolf seems really nice here. If you go Werewolf into Ms. Marvel, then you start playing on reveals, right? Like your opponent's just got a problem. Your opponent's just going to, especially because you have Negasonic and Alioth too to ruin their board. This deck has been very, very fun. I've been playing a fair bit of it. I strongly urge you to check it out if you have these cards. And I understand you might not because, well, this is a lot of high series. Stretchy Limbs. This one was taken from the Marvel Snap Zone deck builders. This is basically the try at the Omega Red list. It can do the Omega Red into Iron Man into Onslaught thing and try and win that way. It can also do the Ms. Marvel into Mystique into Onslaught thing. So it's got a couple plans. You can even do Ms. Marvel into Claw into Onslaught. That might win a few games. It's worth noting that that's a reasonable amount of power. Like, that's a ton of power in that right lane, but it's only 10 in the left lane. But if you had Mr. Fantastic there first, for example, things are starting to look up, right? That's a 14 power lane and like 30 power lane. And then your middle lane isn't like anything to really sneeze at here. Oh, there's a lot to like here. I also really like Super Scroll. I think for at least a few days, Super Scroll is going to be a super great card that you want to be looking at and playing, especially as Mobius returns and as Ms. Marvel is going to be everywhere. Next up, we have Ms. Marvel 1. This is, I wanted to try and build a classic Destroyer, but throw Ms. Marvel in as a way to like steal that extra lane. So this is exactly that deck. It's got the Spectrum thing going to get the big Spectrum buff. It's got the icon Professor X to make a lane that Destroyer can't destroy, and then you can just drop a Destroyer to win the game. If you go, again, something like Cosmo into Ms. Marvel, into Professor X elsewhere, and then you just Destroyer. And if you Professor X on that Ms. Marvel lane, then your Destroyer seems really, really strong, right? Like you can Destroyer that is now 20 power. You can also just play a regular ongoing game, go wide, win with Spectrum. Seems nice. This is a lockdown list. I found the Wasp and Yellow Jacket. I changed some other cards in the deck, but I found the Wasp and Yellow Jacket on Marvel Snap Zone as ways to get unique cost cards into locations. There's not that many zeros, so it's nice to have that ability. This is again just another simple list. This is fairly all in on Ms. Marvel. What you want to do is you want to get Wasp and Yellow Jacket in the left and right, and then you're doing the Invisible Woman, Mr. Fantastic, Ms. Marvel, Iron Man onslaught. And just say good luck, I win now. Right? You're adding 14 power to each location, and then anything else you have is just pretty good. You can also feel free to lock a location with Professor X and win that way. You've always got that option. Claw being good toward Professor X, Daredevil letting you know which option you should choose in that particular game once his bug is fixed, which should be the next patch, not this Thursday's OTA. We've got the Guardians list. I basically pulled a regular old Guardians list and said, pitch Ms. Marvel's good in these Guardians lockdown lists. So here we are. This is your standard Guardians lockdown list. It is running all the cards, or many of the cards that get better if your opponent plays in a card, along with Nebula and Storm to encourage them to play in particular locations. Nebula and Storm encourage them to play in particular locations. You play cards like Rocket, Star-Lord, Gamora, Drax to win. Ms. Marvel, again, helps out the Professor X and Storm. I feel like she's a natural fit with these cards, and that this deck might actually be getting close to being meta again and is worth testing out. This is, again, one of the ones I'm planning on testing immediately. We have an Evo deck. I figured we've got an Evo. We had a regular lockdown. Let's try an Evo lockdown. So this deck has 3 different options on turn 3, right? You can Storm, you can Cyclops, and you can Wave. If you Storm, Ms. Marvel is really good. If you Cyclops, you probably don't want Ms. Marvel. You may want Wave next. But Ms. Marvel is not a bad play on turn 5 here either if you have Cyclops out, and then you can follow that with a Doom, Alioth, or Hulk as needed and win the game of Snap. I also really like Wave. If you Wave on 3, you can Wave into Doom or Alioth or Hulk, right? And then drop Ms. Marvel and then drop the other of your 6s. I think this is actually pretty damn good. Again, give it a few days. Play it now, like right away, and then give it a few days after Mobius gets reverted, and then you can play it again because I don't think Mobius is going to pay too much. I generally think things are probably good in Darkhawk decks. This is a Darkhawk deck. I figure throwing stats into a Darkhawk deck is good. Darkhawk decks often just need a little bit extra stats to go over the top. And they often ran Doom to get that. Oh, why not run Miss Marvel as a 4-cost Doom for this list, right? It's a card you can play on turn 4 relatively safely. It works with Zabu, which means we've already got 3 4-cost cards in the deck. So, sorry, 2 other 4-cost cards in the deck. So now we have Ms. Marvel 2 for Zabu. We have Ravonna working with Black Widow, Darkhawk, Goblin. We've got the Black Bolt stature thing. Oh, sorry, and Mystique. We got the Black Bolt stature thing. There's lots of ways to get a lot of power in this deck. I think it's probably pretty good. I had Abomination in this exact version of the list before Ms. Marvel, but I decided to try Ms. Marvel here. I think it's probably going to work nearly, if not as well, if not better. We also have this other version where we're running Werewolf by Night. It's the same basic list with Werewolf by Night in it as well. Instead of the stature thing, I threw Legion in because, look, Legion's better than Stature and Black Bolt. I think Legion is severely underplayed. Werewolf by Night is great, and if I can get a couple ongoings going with Werewolf by Night, he's huge. Darkhawk's huge. Ms. Marvel's huge. Go with all the stats and make your opponent stop you. The more I look at it, more I think this might be really good too. All right. Regular Apocalypse discard feels like a natural home because, hey, regular Apocalypse discard can run, you guessed it, Storm. Anywhere you can run Storm, that's pretty damn good. The only card that's really dangerous here, I had to cut Swarm for because I don't want a bunch of 2s all over my board if I have Ms. Marvel. But Wolverine could sort of mess you up here, so he's dangerous. You can potentially cut him. I didn't want to, because then Colleen gets real dangerous, and I like having Colleen. Ms. Marvel is in the Hell Cow spot because Hell Cow's great, and if I'm not running Hell Cow and I am running Storm, now I want Nebula, so Nebula replace Blade, and that ends up being the deck. This should be really good. Blade could probably replace Wolverine now that I think of it, but this is a standard discard, and this is just a way to get like those extra few power over the top for those close games. A lot of the times I find that discard either wins close ones or loses close ones, so having +5 multiple occasions, again, having a free Doom here seems pretty damn good. Galactus. So there has to be a friendly card in the lane for Galactus to trigger, right? Well, once Galactus flips, I believe, we don't know yet, that there's now immediately +5 in that lane. So Galactus should trigger. It will then go off, and you may have priority, you may not. If you have priority, Alioth wins. If you don't have priority, Shang-Chi wins. Enjoy your game. That's basically the whole plan here. So it goes Electro, and then you can either Ms. Marvel or Hobgoblin into Galactus. Cool. Either way should work completely fine. You also have obviously the Professor X play after, as they're trying to guard against that kind of play. You can wave into Orca, by the way, and then you can drop a Ms. Marvel on 5, and then you can drop a either Hobgoblin or Alioth to win the game thereafter. There's a lot of ways to win. I feel like this is probably a pretty good Galactus list, assuming that the combination of Ms. Marvel and Galactus works the way I assume it will. I believe this is the last one. I was talking to Wolverthor, who you can find over on YouTube at Wolversnap, about this list. He's got a slightly different version. His version runs Wong and Spectrum. I decided to go a little more all in and try this. I really, really wanted to try a pure ongoing list, and I think this one is pretty damn good. We've got all the combos here. I really, really like Man-Thing and Luke Cage from that Cerebro 5 list, so I threw it in here. On top of that, we've got the Ms. Marvel, which means that like Man-Thing short as crap should, unless they have Luke Cage win that game. We've got the Claw and Onslaught, so if Man-Thing's taking one location, Ms. Marvel's giving a bunch of power, and then Claw and then Onslaught, well, that seems good. And with Zabu, we can make all those plays. We can also do something like Zabu into Ms. Marvel into Mystique, right? And then we can play Claw and Onslaught, which is just completely silly. Mr. Fantastic and Onslaught, so on and so forth. There's a lot of power to this deck. Just for the record, you will not be super duper sad with this, I think. I think this is, again, going to be really, really, really great. This is another one of my very, very favorites of these. I think I've said that about 4 decks. Just so you know, those are the 4 that I will immediately build and play and test. So I believe that all of these are at least sound decks. If Ms. Marvel is good, it will likely be in a shell like this. For the love of God, just let it not be low. All right, final thoughts for Ms. Marvel. There is so much more to this video, don't stress. But this is about Ms. Marvel personally. 15 for only 4 is a lot if it works at all. And it has to work at all, right? You would definitely play a 410 if it were a base 410. All the 410s in the game have really, really bad downsides or require you to do a lot of work. We're thinking Sentry, we're thinking Atuma, and we're thinking Typhoid Mary. Well, Ms. Marvel is at least a 410 90 time, assuming you're playing well, building well, and junk doesn't take over the meta. That's great. You should probably play this card in some decks. She might just go in decks. She might not need to be a build around. We'll see as we go. She's still more balanced than Elsa was and Loki is. I still think she's really good. You can abuse her pretty damn easily with Onslaught. Look, 10 power in each location from that is just silly. It's just silly. It's a lot of power. Plus you get 1,500 extra gold. Plus you get 4 extra variants. Plus you don't have to waste spotlights on her later. I think the season pass is a ridiculously good deal. Remember, with just the season pass, you can get every card. If you spend optimally with just the season pass, you should be able to keep collection complete if you are, and which means if you are not collection complete, you get the season pass, you spend optimally, you should be able to work your way toward collection complete, and eventually you will get there with just that $10 a month. I strongly urge people to, and I know there's a lot of you that are free to play, this is not meant as an insult, I strongly urge you to consider Marvel Snap a $10 subscription each month, spend it wisely, and you will basically guarantee yourself a full collection, being able to play with all the cards with time and patience. Oh, do it. You won't be sad. All right. Oh, sorry. Let's go back 1 second. I just told you to spend money. I'm going to hear divulge that I'm a Marvel Snap creator. I will directly tell you not to buy many more bundles than I tell you to buy. I always do. I think the only thing you really have to buy or really should buy is the season pass. I'm not really getting kickback. Being in the creator program is 2,000 gold. 2,000 gold is worth nowhere near enough for my morals. I'm telling you to buy this because I think for the amount of time we all put into Marvel Snap, $10 a month is an absolute steal. Before we look at this month, let's keep in mind that there's no skip week for the season pass for December or January. What that means is whenever the season pass comes out, there has been no new card released that week. In December and January, we know it's Blob and it's Kyera are both coming out the same week as the season pass. That means spotlights are harder to get now and worth more. All good? Spotlight keys, I guess. 2. Jeff, Tribunal with Firestar, Nico, and Iron Lad are coming one per week in December. Those are really high value cards. I would go so far as to say Jeff and Lad are worth more than every card in November, except maybe Annihilus, and Annihilus is back in January. Tribunal Bill is one of the 2 key cards for one of the most powerful decks in the game. That Hella Discard Tribunal thing. And that comes with Firestar, who I think is the best card next month. Nico's great, not as necessary, but great. And Iron Lad is rarely in Spotlight caches and one of the best cards in the game. If I had to choose, I would save up. Like, if I were like really trying to optimize, I would genuinely just save up for all of November as best I could. Get as many tokens and save up, and as many caches in November as I could, Spotlight keys, and then open in December. I would open Annihilus in January from there. It's worth noting if you're missing Loki. Loki and Elsa are with Grandmaster in January. And Werewolf by Night is back in January. Loki is in the second Spotlight cache. So what we're going to have to discuss and decide is if you want Gladiator, so you should open for Loki, or if you can wait till January. I think Loki is completely OP, but also very likely to be nerfed again. So I think Loki is one of the more complicated cards to recommend in the game. But Loki, Elsa, and Grandmaster, if you don't have those cards, is like the best Spotlight cache. All good? Let's go. 11-8. This is the last time again for that skip week, worth noting. It is Alioth, because it sounds like Sephiroth, Null, and Negasonic Teenage Warhead. We're going to look at these cards specifically, each individually, at the end of the video, along with at least 2 decks for each. Cool. We're going to hold off on that. We're basically deciding, should we open this week? Do we want to open for Alioth, Null, and Negasonic? Well, next week, if you saved your caches, you could potentially open for Gladiator. Series 5, 6,000 tokens. On reveal, add a card for your opponent's deck to their side of the location. If it has less power, destroy it. So here's my logic. Yuck. A lot of people like this. I run an article on Marvel Snap Zone where I ask like 60 plus creators, everyone from like Lambie to Browday to Educated Collins, to rank their predictions for the cars this season, and I'm pretty sure it's all the votes aren't in, but Gladiator's either going to come in first or second. People really like Gladiator. I think it's a premium cost, but it's Yondu with downside. You shouldn't run Yondu just to run Yondu, right? Like, the card might as well be their bottom card. Except, as far as we know, this card is also going to get its on reveal. So if you pull a Doom, even if you killed that Doom, you got 7, but you gave them 10. If you pull a Mr. Negative, you just gave them a turn early Mr. Negative. If you pull an Iron Man, you're happy, right? But that might as well have been their bottom card, right? Like, there's no guarantees. You could have played a rock and shuffled it in, and then they never drew it, right? Like, I think this is terrifying. I think that this loses you a fair number of games, and I don't think it's really worth the downside. I genuinely, generally speaking, rather run Mac. Gladiator basically requires you to run Shang-Chi in order to answer the 9 power cards that are bigger than it. You're occasionally going to hit an 8 and just be sad, right? But you need that 9 power card. I think this does have a home. That home is likely to be Destroy. If Destroy is running Shang-Chi, if your like version of classic Death Null Destroy is running Shang-Chi, you can also run Gladiator. If it's not, I don't believe it's supposed to. Cool. I don't like this card. A lot of people do. I reserve the right to be wrong, but my immediate gut reaction is this card is fine and probably not worth playing. It comes with Mirage. Mirage is a nice card, but Series 4 card. We don't open for Series 4 cards. Series 4 cards are for tokens, assuming we're trying to optimize. And Loki. Loki is phenomenal. Loki is so great. One of the best cards in the game. I think it's probably worth opening for Loki and just getting him as soon as possible before he gets nerfed. You can hit Infinite with Loki, and he's unbelievable. You just have to learn the play pattern. We do a lot of videos on Loki's play patterns. So like check any Loki video on this channel. There's a turn-by-turn guide that explains exactly how to play this card. As far as the variants go, I don't really love this Mirage. It looks like just a girl on a bike, not Mirage. Sad. This is a great Gladiator variant, but now you're opening 4 caches for it or spending tokens. I don't urge you to. This is an okay Loki. There are 2 Lokis out I like better, and the Loki that's coming out in January Spotlight is way better. So I don't know. I don't think it's especially worth opening spotlights for these variants, assuming you're swimming in spotlights. Next up, we have Annihilus. I think Annihilus is going to be the card of the month. A lot of people are like, I don't get it. I don't think this card is that great. I think they are wrong. I think that this card is nuts. 5/7 on reveal, your cards with 0 cost or less power switch sides, destroy those that can. Which means if a card has negative power inflicted on it and it's 0, you can still push it across just fine. If your opponent has goblins on your side and you play this, the goblins are just going to destroy themselves. It doesn't matter if there's a Cosmo on the other side or their location is full or anything. Just getting rid of your negative power will often win games of Marvel Snap. And you don't have to go like super all in to make this good. If you're just running like a hood and like a debris, right, then this is probably worth it. I think that this card is going to be bonkers. I think this card is straight up going to be phenomenal. In a mirror match, you play this on turn 6, so you make sure yours goes last to get rid of all the shit. And if you're playing against literally any other deck, you play this on 5, and then you drop something like Spider-Woman on turn 6 or Rogue on turn 6 to get rid of their Luke or whatever other nonsense you need. I am all about this card. Is it as good as Loki? No. Is it as good as Jeff? Close. It's more of a build around. Is it as good as Iron Lad? Probably not. Just so you know. But it's still, I think, the best new card of the month. It is exactly where I think the best is. We also have these Spotlight caches, and this Annihilation, Annihilus is unbelievable, and I love it so much. I'm probably not opening for it, because I just opened an X23 Spotlight that I like just as much as this one earlier. This is a gorgeous X23, but I also don't need this Dakin. I have a Hip Dakin, and I don't especially like chibi art, so I'm probably not opening this Annihilus. Also, there's a Hip Annihilus that I'm perfectly happy to get, because you know me, I love hips. So, whatever. As far as spotlights go, if you don't have a good X23, fine. I think this is an excellent week to open. This is if I'm opening for 1 week this month. So Dakin is great in basically every discard list. A 3/8 is stellar stats. You can also play him in Surfer, who's coming back. X23 is a must for the best destroy list. All the best destroy lists for an X23. It's hard to run the best destroy list for that right now. And Annihilus is the best junk card, like the junk maker. So if you want to be able to play different decks, and you have 4 Spotlight caches, this week gives you 3 different decks. That seems worth it to me. We look back, right? We go back here. Mirage goes in Loki decks, but whatever, not like all of them and not most of the time. And Gladiator might go in Surfer, but like, and who knows where it really goes, right? Like, if it's any good. Loki is his own deck. Loki is a deck unto himself, so fine, you get 1 new deck. I think that this is the one that is ultimately worth it, especially because if you didn't buy Loki, I'm assuming you also probably didn't buy Elsa, and then you can just do the Loki, Elsa, and Grandmaster, whatever his name is, in January and be perfectly fine. I think this is the 3 to get. They're all 6,000 tokens, so you're getting insane value if you're opening again at all this month. Martyr is bad, but she's Series 4, so you should buy her with tokens if you're going to get her. 1129. At the end of the game, moves to a location that loses you the game. Get it? Because she's over. It's a cute idea. It's like the anti Captain Marvel. If you're going to fill every spot on the board, she's fine. And if you're not, she's terrible. But at 1/4, like, that's Ant-Man. And you're filling every spot on the board, and Ant-Man doesn't have the potential to kill you otherwise. That's, excuse me, that's a single trigger Hawkeye. Like, so why am I playing Martyr at that point? It's like it's better on the last turn of the game sometimes. I don't know. I think Martyr's bad. Bluntly, I think Martyr's bad. That is a gorgeous variant, so it's a shame she's bad, but whatever. Jean Grey is a very good card, Series 5, but not meta. A fun card to have, but not a must-have. And Spider-Man 2099 is, again, a very good card, but not meta. I like this Jean variant in this. I am not opening Spotlight Caches this week for them. I will be buying Martyr with 4,000 tokens. I buy every card. I strongly urge you to just skip Martyr. Save your tokens for something later. All right. Alioth. I know it's Alioth. Leave me alone. I can't sing the Sephiroth song to Alioth. I can. It sounds gross in my head. I don't like it. 6/3, Series 5, 6,000 tokens, unrevealed. Destroy all enemy cards played here this turn, including the unrevealed cards. The best 6-cost card in the game, as confirmed by Glenn. He was on our podcast, Snap Judgments, 3 weeks ago. Alioth is the best 6-cost card in the game. You should probably have him if you can. There's a lot of things to open spotlights for, and bluntly, I don't play a lot of decks that run 6-cost cards. I'm not sure I'd rather run him at the top end of my decks over Legion. I like Legion a lot more most of the time. I have the flexibility of playing it on 5 or 6. I can play it with a lot of extra powerful cards, right? Like, I don't know, super not fort. However, it's very good. I don't know what else to say. Like, it's one of the best. It's the best 6-cost card in the game, and it's a card you should have. If you have enough spotlights to open for this, and then if you need Loki, get Loki, or if you need or to get Annihilus, I think I probably would. But I would take either Loki or the Annihilus. Oh, either way, if you want Alioth, these are the types of decks you're looking at. If you cannot build one of this type of deck, please don't get Alioth. I pulled these from Marvel Snap Zone. This is Agent XK's version of the standard Alioth deck. We looked at a version of this with Ms. Marvel earlier and Storm. This doesn't run those cards. This is a different version. It seems pretty damn good, right? It's basically saying I go wide and then I kill you with Alioth. It's a good way to win, right? You can play Alioth early after a wave, or you can play Alioth late after a Doom or Hulk have been waved out. So you Cyclops on 4, you wave on 5, you Doom or Hulk on Cyclops on 3, wave on 4, Doom or Hulk on 5, Alioth on 6, win game of Snap. Seem good? I thought so. If you like this kind of deck, if you have Evolutionary, go get the card. You do not need Alioth for this deck. This kind of deck works completely fine without him. It's a cloud. I play a version of this deck, and no, Mobius will be a 3-drop, not a 2-drop in this, but I play a version of this that runs Legion. I don't need Alioth for this deck, but Alioth is great in it. This was the meta deck for a little while, one of the top win rate decks in Snap, and it is still, therefore, worth playing. So I strongly urge you to check this deck out. Again, if this is a deck you have interest in playing, if you have Silk and Jeff, you can feel free to play Alioth. Again, I just run Legion here. This is the deck you need Alioth for more than anything else. If you like Thanos, Alioth is a must-have in Thanos decks. You often go really wide, but not very tall, so Alioth stops the opponent from going tall over you, along with Shang-Chi, in a way that is very, very necessary. You do need Elsa for these Thanos decks. So if you have Elsa, you have Thanos, then this is the one reason I would prioritize Alioth and push him up the list. You do not NOT at all need Iron Lad for this list. He's here because, well, look at what he can hit. He can hit a draw. He can hit a Vision, the Alioth, the Professor X, the Dino, the Blue Marvel, etc. The Elsa is not a bad hit, so on. So that's why he's here, but he's not a requirement at all. Elsa, Alioth, and Thanos are. So if you want to play Thanos, great, open Alioth. It's a priority. Our next card is the recently worked Negasonic Teenage Warhead. I bought this the week it came out because I had Infinite and thought I deserved a present for myself, and was sad about it for months. Negasonic is a 3/2, Series 4, 3,000 tokens. After an enemy card is played here, destroy it once per game. So good. I've been playing this in Surfer. Everyone's running Wolf. I'm running Negasonic and just blowing stuff. So great. If you can figure out where your opponent's going to play at all, this is a game-winning card. It's backbreaking to have a body that just you can play in that location. Your opponent can't. You can blow up their big stuff. If they need to play in a spot to win the game, you drop Negasonic. People are not playing around it to the point where they're playing their cheaper stuff first. They're generally playing their more powerful stuff first and then figuring out their cheaper stuff. So Negasonic is stellar right now. Worth 3,000 tokens, I think. Not worth a Spotlight Cash unless you're already opening for Alioth, obviously. The first deck is Negasonic Teenage Surfer. This is a list I have been playing. I love it. It's very high win rate. It does not need Storm. Some of the versions don't run Storm and run Spider-Man instead. That's fine. This has got Goose to help lock down a location. So if you can lock down a location with Storm, Goose, and Negasonic, game Marvel Snap is won, right? Enjoy yourself. It's so strong. You got the Nova Killmonger thing to add an extra power. It's like a mini Surfer. This deck is everything. Again, give it a rest for like a couple days after the Mobius is reverted. But once that's done, I strongly urge you to check this awesome deck out. Negasonic Combat Wolf. We talked about this deck earlier. I threw a Ms. Marvel in it for a Silk. If you could make this deck is super cool, super powerful, but it is stupidly expensive. Having Nico, Jeff, Silk, Werewolf, and Alioth, and Iron Lad, that's like half a deck worth of Series 5s. Then Negasonic is still Series 4. So, like, big yikes. If you've got this, then great. If you're, like, have all the other cards for Negasonic and Alioth, this is a thing you can play. Cool. Next up, we have Null. Null is Series 4, 3,000 tokens. Ongoing. Has the combined power of all cards destroyed this game. Null is, like, the top end of pure destroy. He's great in that matchup. He wins a lot of games. Snap. Simple enough. He's often the biggest of the big things. The standard destroy list looks something like this. This is generally the most successful destroy list. Now, often Forge is replaced by Nico. If you have it, great. If you don't, have fun. This is crazy strong. You kill Deadpool, you throw Hulkbuster on Deadpool, you kill Deadpool, Null is huge. You build whatever the crap giant stuff you want, you eat it all with Venom, you play Null, it's huge. Win game of Snap. It's the entire thing, right? There's nothing super fancy here. You can even play Null and Deadpool together on the last turn of the game with X-23. If you don't have X-23, I'm not sure Null is worth it. Cool. We also have our friend Miles. Hey, Miles. Mr. Negative. He won an Infinity Border with this very deck this past season. This deck is sweet. It's really good. It's one of the best Mr. Negative decks I've ever played. Again, give it a rest for a few days once Mobius is reverted. But basically, you have the two ways of making Mr. Negative cheaper. You've got Killmonger and Shang to make yourself a giant null. And if your giant null costs 0 and your Arnim Zola costs 0, and you can make that happen with Jane, then you can pop that all over the board, and then Shang is killing stuff. You can also copy that null with Mystique, or you can Iron Man and make that null stupidly huge. Alioth to get an extra kill, etc., etc., etc. This deck is glorious. It is so good. If you have the patience for Mr. Negative, which means running often when you don't have negative, you should play this list. So, should you open this week? If you need Alioth and Null, I think it's a relatively easy open, though again, I'm assuming you have X-23. If you have Loki, it's easier still. If you need Loki, wait until Thursday to see if some kind of nerf happens. If not, I would probably pass. Loki is more important. Do you have the extra cards for these decks? If you're missing, there's a lot of Series 4 and 5 cards in a lot of these lists. If you're missing them, or you already have Legion for Alioth, you can skip. If you have the cards for like all these decks, though, and you're really dismissing Alioth and you really want to play Thanos in particular, open this. All good? That is our final thoughts. Thank you so much for watching today's long snap take. We appreciate you. We'll be back tomorrow with 2 brand new decks. See you then. Sub, like, comment, and